our names at the end for a few of you who don't know each other. Glen Moriarty, Y Combinator. You're pretty high up there now. Aren't you ranked up pretty high? Doing well. 7 Cups of Tea. John Paris, Williams Mullen. Been around the block a couple times with this financing stuff. So they're going to tell us a little bit about just financing in general and the ways that they've done it or they've seen it, and then we'll open it up to questions to make this very informative like we do things here. And then later on, we'll post the link on the Facebook page so you guys can watch it again if you need to. And that's it. So, John, you want to start?
Want me to start?
No. Go.
You actually raised money?
I did.
Do it. Why don't you do your story first? That's more.
Okay. Can I get a cup of coffee? Sorry, I should have asked earlier. So just so I can get a better understanding, are all you guys have startups, or you're thinking about startups and you want to raise money? Just help me understand what would be the most helpful. Thank you, sir.
I think we're all in different stages right now.
Okay.
So I'm napkin, proof of concept stage.
Okay.
And then he's already got one.
Okay.
I made the tunnel traffic app, so that's
Okay.
being used by a lot of people already right now. Has a lot of
Nice.
traction.
So that tunnel traffic thing I saw is you?
Yeah.
I wonder where that came from.
Nice.
Cool.
Smart, yeah.
My business is rolling nicely. The aerial photography thing, drones,
Okay.
developing projects with prototypes.
Okay.
It's cool.
All right. Well, it sounds like you're all over the board. So really the question is, if you're thinking about raising money, you really have to ask, what are the goals for the business? Like, why do you want to raise money? And normally the way this kind of rolls out is you have, your own money to start, just to get maybe a napkin or proof of concept thing ready. And then maybe you raise a seed round, which is, usually from angel investors, people who can invest as little as 10,000, or 25,000 or 50,000 or even a couple 100,000. And there's a really great site called AngelList, which maybe you're all familiar with. That's kind of democratized the seed the seed funding process, which can be really good. And the basic idea is you're giving away small portions of your company for cash, for money. And that's all based on whatever you and your investors agree your valuation is. So for example, if you say, my company's worth $3 million and somebody gives you $100,000, they're going to get a larger percentage of your company. Whereas if you say my company's worth $5 million and they give you $100,000, they're going to get a smaller percentage of that because your company's worth more. So thinking through where you are and then what your goals are and what level of funding you need to meet those next milestones is really critical. So for example, if you're just starting off and, I don't know, maybe you're going to build something in, it's going to take some cash to build it out, then get an idea of how much cash that's going to take and then what your milestones are. So we'll have 100,000 users, or we'll have an app in the iPhone store and an app in the Android store, or we'll have this many paying users. But so hey, these are my goals and this money is going to help me hit those goals. Does that make sense? And then after you get product market fit and you've got some decent use, then you go and you raise a Series A, which is a kind of a big chunk of money for a much larger percentage of the company. And that's usually from a professional investor, like a group, a venture capital firm, where they'll, maybe give you, if you have a $50 million valuation for your company, they'll give you $10 million for 20% of the company. And then it's a whole complicated process. But then you hit your next milestones, and then you raise a Series B, and then a Series C, and then hopefully you go public or get acquired or something along in that process. But in the startup scene, raising money can be glorified for just raising money. Like, hey, I raised money, which is not. It's great to raise money, but it's not don't mistake that for meaning success. Really what you've done is you've gotten smart people, hopefully, to give you money, and now they have expectations on you. So now instead of just, hey, being my prototype, or hey, on my napkin, or hey, a nice business that I'm happy with, you've got folks who gave you some cash, and they're betting on you. And the thing you should know, probably less so, depending on where you are, like in Silicon Valley, it's pretty clear that venture investing or angel investing is a binary game. Either you're Instagram or you're not really. So in the thing that I went through, Y Combinator, they have several billion-dollar companies now that are called unicorns because they're rare. And they're called unicorns because they don't happen a lot. So, maybe there's 700 companies that have gone through YC, maybe 10 are worth over $1 billion. So it's a very hits-based business. So think Hollywood, think music, songs, like, you might put out 30 songs and one of them's going to get big, or maybe 20, one of them's going to get big. So from an investor perspective, they're really thinking, is this something that could be huge? Is this something that could really change the world? And if I don't bet, am I going to be kicking myself because this guy bet and made a whole bunch of cash and I didn't? So that FOMO, that fear of missing out. So that's what you have to trigger. You have to basically show through your metrics, through your stats, that you've got people using this, and in order, really, revenue is the best thing to be able to show, hey, we're making real money. If you're not making real money, then you've got user growth, you've got good, strong growth month over month, and then you've got engagement. People are using the product pretty routinely. And along with that, there's some plausibility of how you can convert that use into money at some point. So it has to be somewhat related. It has to be like a logical, yes, they're doing this, and I can see how they can make money doing this. So you've got your team, who you are has to be convincing. Your process, the plausibility for how you're going to make money has to be convincing. Your stats have to be convincing. And then, beyond that, you're really just optimizing for who these people are that you're going to be letting join your company, because they're become team members with you. They're going to actually really care about whether your product works, and you have to be willing to answer their emails and send them investor updates and everything else along the way. So that's kind of just I didn't know how familiar you all were with the kind of fundraising process to begin, so I just wanted to give a quick intro. Does all of that make sense? Are there any questions about that before I kind of get into the 7 Cups narrative? Yes.
Does that affect like how you incorporate in terms of
Yeah.
what you're trading?
Yeah. From a incorporation perspective, we were counseled to. Virginia is a great state to do business in. I think it's like number 1 or number 2, but we were counseled. Is it number 4 now?
It just recently.
No, it's like 4 or 5.
No, it's officially whatever that means.
But Delaware is what also what all YC companies are counseled to incorporate in.
And are you an Inc?
Yeah, we're an S corp.
You have to be supposed to trade shares or
No, you can do it in other ways. It's just easy. There's a really great site called Clerky.com. They're also a YC company. They've really streamlined if you're going to raise money using convertible notes, which is basically it's a very simple process where somebody's giving you cash that will convert in equity at a later point at your next round where a valuation is set. So I don't want to get too into the weeds, but basically when you get angel money, they're going to agree with you on a set valuation of how much your company's worth, and they'll say a cap. So like your company will be worth, I'm not going to pay more than $5 million. So I'm saying I'm going to give you 100K at a max $5 million valuation. But Clerky has a lot of simplified forms, and if you read convertible note, if you Google that, you'll be able to find plenty of information on that online. It just makes it much easier to raise money than lawyers are fantastic and can really help you, but it can be a little bit pricey, especially for a seed round. So you want to keep your costs down as much as possible until you hit a Series A where you get the cash to spend. Did you have a question, or somebody have a question? No. Okay. So briefly, I went to Y Combinator with a basic idea. We didn't even have like really a model built, and we got out there and I got to connect with some really, really smart people. Paul Buchheit, who is the creator of Gmail, was my main mentor there, and just drove, really smart guy, really bright guy, and a very kind of driven guy that helped me kind of orient really quickly and figure out what the most important things were to do. and went through that process, was mentored by several of those folks, learned a lot along the way. But really the primary thing is make something users want. So the way to think about this is not like how do you get money? The way to think about it is how do you make something that's so awesome that investors can't wait to give you money? And we're here in the Hampton Roads area where there's not loads of venture capital. There's not loads of investment capital. There's not a lot of angel investors. There's not a lot of risk tolerance for risk. It's a pretty conservative area. So you have to make something that is awesome. And these guys are out looking for awesome ideas. So it's not like they're just, you don't have to like emailing them your deck, your slide deck, or cold emailing them. Like none of that's going to work. What you have to do is just make something awesome that people really want to use. And they're looking for those things. They're looking for those opportunities. And then they'll reach out to you. Yeah, preach it. Woo. They'll reach out to you when you've done that. So don't burn your time trying to optimize to get money from angel investors. Instead, say, I'm going to build something fantastic that they're going to really want. You want to be the attractive person everybody wants to be.
So YouTube and Ellen. Ellen
Yes.
DeGeneres. Yeah, we put it out that way. No.
Yeah. If you can get any of that type of social proof, absolutely. But there are all kinds of tools, research tools that these guys use to track progress on companies. So they're looking for great opportunities. So if you build something that people want and it's growing, they will find you. So that's the best thing you can do. So anyways, we went through YC and I learned that whole process, a lot of really hard lessons. And then that same guy I mentioned earlier invested $100,000 in us to start. And then several other partners at YC invested in us. And then several other angels. And for us at YC, you go through this thing called Demo Day, where you pitch at the Computer Science Museum in Silicon Valley. And they've got all the kind of the best investors in the world, the best tech investors in the world there. And you do a 3-minute pitch, 3 minutes. And they have like a little, like a TGI Fridays thing that buzzes, if they're interested in you. It's not quite that, but it's like, hey, they press a button about wanting to meet you. And then what happens is that breaks in the day, because like when I went through, there were 50 companies that presented. So you can imagine sitting through 50 3-minute pitches. They meet you at break. And it's called something called the handshake protocol that Paul Graham created, where it's like, hey, I like your company. I want to invest 50 grand. You say, okay, you shake on it and you send an email. You pull out your phone, you send an email just confirming you want to invest $50,000. The other person pulls out their email and says, yes, send. And that's it. And then you send them the docs through Clerky. They sign them digitally and they wire you the cash. So through that process, we raised a little bit under 1.2 million. And now where we are in the process is just making sure that we continue to hit our milestones, continue to grow so that we look attractive for a Series A if we do indeed want to raise a Series A at some point in the future, or we're at least sustainable and we don't have to if we don't want to. So that's kind of a quick kind of, overview of kind of seed and angel investing and then how it fit into our flow or our process. So happy to answer any questions about that.
So were those individuals already vetted? So you felt okay with that handshake with those individuals, or?
Yes. Yeah. All those people were already vetted. You're only allowed to go to this demo day thing if the YC partners like you, basically. So yeah, they were all already vetted.
So now that you have investors, do you have any stories of kind of the ups and downs, kind of up and down swings as you report back to them? Bad stories, good stories, and how does that kind of reflect back and forth?
Yeah, I think I worried much more about this than I really should have early on. I think that because these startups are binary, you're either Airbnb,
right,
and you're worth you're going to be $100 billion company, or you're like, in this world, if you're making $10 million a year, it's like that, like good job,
Yeah.
you know, but like, it's not really that interesting. So I think I sweat that stuff probably more than I needed to.
Okay.
And you know, with any people who give you feedback, it kind of the stronger you become and the more you mature, the more you're kind of aware of your own voice and the less vulnerable you are. So I think it's really important to get this, and the only way you get that is through growth and learning and experience. You have to figure that out. But in that process, you figure it out. So then when people give you feedback, you know, well, is this like, do I think this is accurate? Where you know, you can't be defensive about it,
Sure.
but you have a better gauge as to what's good or not. So certainly, I've gotten some feedback from investors on things that, you know, at the time, when early on, that I was more vulnerable, I thought, oh, I'm doing this wrong, or oh, I should be doing this, or you know, I didn't do this right. And then, as you mature, you like realize, hey, listen, I'm the one who's eating, breathing, sleeping this thing. Like, I know this, and it's okay to say, well, listen, I hear what you're saying, and you might be right, but this is what I think.
Right.
So yeah, I think the best investors are founder friendly.
Right.
They're not trying to squeeze you. In my opinion, I think the best investors are also they recognize that there's going to be a lot of ups and downs, and they've got your back going through it. So
they're prepared for that, and and at first you weren't prepared for that, but it became pretty obvious that I've just got to maintain the spirit of the company, and I've got to keep the one mission statement, and if it goes up or down, it doesn't really matter. It's just kind of a trend for that week or month.
Yeah. The good thing to think about is you really want to track your data and your analytics to know where you're going. But you know, the broader thing in life is even in your own personal life, like if you're trying to get insight into yourself, being aware of your moment by moment feelings and thoughts, your first person, like this is your world, that's not really a good way to get insight. And that's not really a good way to get insight into your company either. Instead, a good way to zoom back and look at the broader narrative of where you're going.
Yeah.
And then you can see those trends. And then that gets you distance, and it gets you more accurate data and insight onto what's happening with yourself. But as a startup, you can be in that, my numbers went down, or this didn't happen, or this client didn't close, or whatever. And you got to be careful to zoom back and say, yes, that was a loss, but that's okay. And you remember, like the famous quip about a startup is, founders are people who can, keep getting punched in the face while somebody's throwing cookies at them.
Yeah.
And you got to look for the cookies, because it's not easy. You just got to blam. Okay, moving forward, blam, moving forward. And you got to have intelligence, but you really got to have perseverance and grit.
How did you get to Y Combinator?
We got through YC. I was sitting on my couch one night and I read Hacker News, and they said, hey, we submit, if you submit soon, we'll read your thing. We'll read your application. So I was exhausted, and I stayed up that night until 2 a.m. I still have the video. I think I've shown you the video. I could barely keep my eyes open. I'm terrible on camera, as this I'm sure will show. But I look like this. It was so late, and I was trying to keep my eyes open and do this 1 minute quick summary of 7 cuts. So I did that, submitted it, and I saw 17 views in the first week, and then it was boom, nothing. So then I just kind of basically forgot about things, and then on my couch again, I saw a post. Hey, invitations just went out for Y Combinator. And I checked my email, and this lady, Kirsty, who's a partner, said, hey, we're really interested in what you're doing. We'd like to fly you out and learn more about it. So hopped on a plane. I didn't think I was going to get in. So I got a flight back for 4 days. If I would have thought I would have gotten in, I would have had to get a stay for a week. So I got out there, and they fly you in. They sit you in a room like this with 4 partners, and they just drill you for 10 minutes, really hard questions. They're trying to see if they can rattle you. And at the end of it, that guy, Paul Buhai, said, listen, we'll email you if you're out, and we'll call you if you're in. So I went, got a big dark beer, pal sat on the street and was just like, I did the best I could. It is what it is. And sure enough, I got a call from a Palo Alto number. I don't know anybody in Palo Alto. And it was Paul. He said, hey, we'd like to make you an offer to come to YC. I was like, I can't believe it. So
Another one.
what's that?
Another one of those.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really, really fortunate and lucky, serendipitous. So
What do you think got their attention in your 1 minute?
That's it.
I think they care about something that's, I think these guys really actually want to change the world. And I think they look for really, really big opportunities.
Yeah.
So I think, and the one thing that they really care about is being able to clearly say what it is you're trying to do, because they see that as a heuristic for having real insight. So if you can simply say, I'm doing this and it's going to change the world in this way, and they believe it, then I think they're pretty intrigued.
You had a good rapport with Paul Graham, though. He would jokingly call you Dr. Moriarty, right?
Yeah.
Certain things, the psychologist behind it. I think that.
There is some social proof. So like if you're in the military or, you're into traffic and you have some kind of background, I think there's a whole bunch of things that get you, that help you. But I think ultimately it's, can you clearly articulate what it is you're doing, and do you have this kind of deep drive? And they assess all these things. I mean, they have like this, they videotape all the interviews. They have this huge database of how you respond to the questions on the application, even though the form's not that big. So I think they've done a fair amount of research and can kind of figure that out. And still, I mean, it's obviously, they're looking for unicorns. And
Were you in Hatch?
I was not in Hatch, but I knew Zach. I love Hatch. It's like really the only startup haven, for around here. So it was always nice to be able to touch base. I have another company too that I own. So founders have to stick together and learn about things, and there's not many of us around here, I don't think.
I mentioned your milestones, but you don't just get a lot of money to go off and do your thing. I mean, like, there's stipulations that these investors set up for you, or how does that?
They don't set them up for you. You set them up. So ultimately, they're investing in your brain. So you don't want your investor to say, hey, these are your milestones. You want to say to your investor, like, this is the problem I'm solving. This is how I know I'm making progress on it. This is what progress will look like. And if they disagree with you, they'll tell you, but it's really you designing and solving this thing.
So they don't make any terms.
Terms in terms of what? Like, hey, if you don't hit this, we take our money back, like that kind of thing?
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's sunk cost. It's, I've given you this money. I really hope it's amazing. I'm happy to help you if I can. But like it's you. You got to do it.
Can you talk a little bit about the process of them really pushing you? I remember you and I had a lot of phone calls over this first 2 weeks where they're like, get it out, get it out, get it
Yes.
out, and then it broke, and then
Yeah.
like kind of the experiences through that. I think in our area, not only do we have some of the things as a financial that can be financially hard to get over, but then we have people that want things that are very, very polished at an early stage.
Yeah.
And so I know that when you were going through those first maybe 5 or 6 weeks, we were having a lot of issues talking through your voiceover piece.
Yeah.
And kind of get through just why you should just push.
Yeah, that's a great question. So that was one of the main things I learned. I mean, the first meeting I had, I was working on the webpage, like the home site. And we had this idea that military people were going to use it because military people can't really ask for help. And then we were going to get parents of children with disabilities to use it because they're isolated and alone and they need help. But we hadn't actually launched the product yet. So I went from my first meeting at YC, and it was like, I'm like getting ready to do my whole spiel about how, what we're doing. And it was just basically like, there's no apologies about interrupting, just like Did you launch yet? No. Launch. Well, do you want us to do it? Launch. Okay. Thanks. Went, wasn't even ready to launching, launched in 3 days. Guess what? All the parents of children with disabilities didn't want to use the service that I thought was going to be like totally the people that use the service. They don't want the service. You know why? Because it's summer and all their stress is gone. Well, guess who wants to use the service? We got to hurry up and figure out who the heck wants to use the service. Who wants to use the service? People with mental health issues that are really in pain. Okay, how do you find those people? Okay, how do you grow? How do you get them to use it? How do you get them to give you feedback? And you just, it's a relentless push. Gary Tan, who's another investor and a really smart guy, said, getting your product in front of clients, like people using your clients, is like a magnet. The more they use it, the stronger your magnet becomes. And I think as entrepreneurs, are much how we're socialized, you're supposed to get things in fairly decent shape, or think that they're good looking, or get some feedback from 10 people that say they like it, and really just get the piece of crap out there and get people to respond to it, and then fix it, and then get them to respond to it, and then fix it and get them to respond to it, and then fix it and get them to respond to it, and fix it. And that's all you do, basically. You just keep iterating and building a better and better and better and better product. And like for 7 Cups, I mean, it was like a pretty big disaster to start. I mean, it just didn't work well. Didn't have, had some real challenges, but you see, remember I was saying about zoom out and you see your trajectory. So the thing rapidly evolved and got better and better and better and better. And now it's like, I mean, it's great, and it's only going to get way tighter. So I can see that trend. If I zoom back, I can see where it's going. But yeah, and it's tough to do this with people. Like I've mentored some folks along the ways with this, and it's tough. Like at YC, it's pressure. It's like pressure, and you really, really feel that. And here, apart from that context, it's really hard to apply that pressure to somebody, or to ask somebody to apply that pressure to you. So I think you have to kind of really do it yourself. But that's what makes things great. It's that pressure. It's that like deep, like obsession. Like you have to be really obsessed with it, and not obsessed with it like. I was only through this process. I mentioned I have another company. I was never really obsessed with it. Like I kind of figured it out early. I knew how to make money on it. We hired some people. It worked. It was never an obsession. 7 Cups is an obsession. It's like, like Paul Graham talks about things that are top of mind for you. Like when you're taking a shower, what is it that you're thinking about? Like where do your thoughts go unbidden when you're not directing your thoughts? What do you think about? And for me, it is like 7 Cups 24/7. And it's not because I'm trying to generate that. It's because I'm just obsessed with it. Like I just deeply care about it. So, I mean, it's been 18 months. A good metaphor is kind of like a baby. The thing is like 18 months old, and it's like, thank God my obsession is beginning to decrease a little bit as the thing can stand on its own. It's starting to walk.
Get that first pitch in the car, probably.
Yeah, that's right. When I was first thinking about the idea, I pitched it we were in a car driving up to DC for a thing, just as the initial idea, and it's of course morphed dramatically since then. But
1 minute. What was 7 Cups?
Okay, 1 minute. So 7 Cups of Tea is the emotional support system for the internet. So no matter where you are, no matter what time, no matter what language, you can go online or open up an app and get emotional support from somebody.
That's awesome. That is actually pretty freaking awesome.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
My question was then, what keeps you here, and what were their reactions to being here but pulling investment from California?
So that was a process. So I was not very clear on how that was going to go, but right now in the Valley, it is incredibly expensive. I mean, I had a 2-bedroom apartment in Mountain View. My family, I've got 4 kids. My family went out there for a month. Yeah.
So everybody went. Okay.
Well, no, just for a month. It was 3 months. The process was 3 months, but they went out for a month. That was $3,000 a month
Right.
for that little rinky-dink apartment. Houses are like $1 million, $1.5 million bucks. Engineers are like 150K, 175K. So if you're going to raise seed money like us, we raised $1 million, 1.2. That money goes so much further. Like if I was there, that money would be gone. I mean, like boom, gone. So for me, it's a clear. Listen, if I'm building something that I think is going to change the world, I need to nurture it. I'm not going to go out and even if the Silicon Valley mindset is, you have to be here. Even most people there believe it's like kind of out of control, and your money's just going to evaporate. So you have to be I think you have to be strategic about it. And I've communicated that. Like, listen, we're hitting these milestones, we're hitting growth, we're doing these things. Ultimately, I think Silicon Valley is the place to be, but I don't think you go there. I mean, if you're there, awesome, but you're gonna burn your money so much quicker before you've proven it out.
I talked to a guy in Boston at a conference, like an MIT, it was a business and meeting conference, and I asked a similar question about that, knowing that it's cheaper to live here than it is there or Silicon Valley. The investor was like, yeah, we might think about that. And then there was an MIT guy who said, yeah, but why would you do that? Intelligence pools in large cities.
And that's true.
So
but it's access to, but the question is the network. Do you have to live in a place to access the network?
Right.
I don't think so.
And the amazing thing that YC's done, one of the amazing things, is they built an incredible alumni network. So like I can send a message, or I can email any of the founders of any of the YC companies with like a click. Or I can send an email out to the entire YC community asking for help on something.
Okay.
Like I didn't know about App Store optimization, how to get your SEO, search engine optimization, how to help people find your site online.
Yeah. So
I don't know how to help people find my app. I emailed that out. I got, 10, 15 like super helpful responses. Took my App Store optimization understanding from like here to here. And now I can contribute that back to the community. So like it's a virtuous circle so I think that's true if you don't have access to a network.
So they didn't look at it as a problem though right away.
No,
They're
I mean,
older though too. I have to point out the guy who said that, he was pretty young. So it was like the investor was older, didn't really necessarily see it as a problem. The guy who spoke up was kind of a younger, more brash.
There are network effects to like cities, absolutely, and there are huge network effects to Silicon Valley. But the question is how do you access those network effects?
Sure. But nobody questioned that. Oh, you're going to go live in Norfolk or whatever.
Well, it was a process. I mean, it wasn't like
So it was a conversation.
Oh yeah, it was a conversational process. But it's just it's just one that nobody says, hey, just violate reality.
Right.
You have to be oriented to reality to some extent.
Sure.
So, like that money would be gone.
Now, was that how you sold it?
No, that's just how you figure it out. Like if you're, in the process, it's quick. Like YC's 3 months, you're raising money. Like I raised that money in 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like you're just running and gunning. You're not like it. Like that process is like building a company or building a product. You're just going for it.
Right.
So you're not kind of zooming out and like reflecting and having conversations. You're just running.
Right.
I think I'm good. So unless there's other questions, I'm always happy to answer questions via email too.
That's good stuff. I got a question. So what were your investors like? Personality wise, class?
They're really all over the board. So probably 20s, 30s. A lot of folks that have exited. They've sold their companies to other companies, and they want to throw in 50 grand, or they're just wealthy folks. So yeah, really all over the board, but really, really smart. I mean, all the investors, unfortunately, are like super bright people. So I feel very fortunate. So none of this should be, like this was, I got really fortunate in a lot of ways. It's not necessarily like,
Tech stars at the same time too.
Two questions.
Yeah.
First of all, you mentioned that they kind of give you the money and tell you to go do your thing.
do they have any expectation with how you're going to do dividend setups or anything like that after you're making money or a time frame? No.
No, it's not. It's not like, hey, I'm generating profit and I kick these guys $100 a month or something. Like, the way to think about it is really in that binary way. Either this thing is going to be a $1 billion company and be amazing, or it's going to like do fine, or it's going to suck. But if it just does fine, that's not particularly attractive. They're looking for, is this thing going to change the world? Is it going to be a really significant company? So for these guys, if you've got, millions of dollars in the bank, if I kick you $100 a month or $1,000 a month or $10,000 a month, like, it's just not significant. You see what I'm saying?
Not interesting at all.
Did Paul Graham ask you to write in a e-list recipes to do video?
What's that?
Did Paul Graham ask you to write in the e-list recipes?
Oh, right. No, I'm not a programmer, unfortunately. I wish I was, but I'm not.
What was your other company?
Advanced 360, it's a learning management system company. So like Blackboard, competitor to Blackboard.
Okay, but you didn't write any of the software.
No, I'm a psychologist, so my job is to find smart people to work with. And I've had some success with that. And, you just got to quickly figure out if you hire the wrong person, you got to end it quick and move forward. So I've been also fortunate in that space too, is that some very smart people have agreed to work with me on this mission, and I'm very fortunate to have them. But that the team is critical. The team builds the product, which builds the company. So if you don't have the team right, you're not going to get the product right. You're not going to get the company right. So you got to really get the team right, and that's not easy.
You want to stay, Dale?
I'm happy to stay till 1, right?
Yep.
What is it now?
12:43.
And if you want to stay longer, we can.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm more interested in this. So many ways I could go with this. So I'm a lawyer. I was born in Cincinnati, moved here. My wife's from here. For 30 years, I've been helping companies raise money and get bought, get sold. Clerky is a great site for the early stage stuff because it's very hard for people like you guys to afford lawyers who can do the kind of work. Now, the truth is, the problem is that probably no company needs lawyers more than an early stage company because there's just so much stuff that you got to get straight. Making sure that anybody that works for you has signed over any IP they develop while they work for you, while they're paying for you. There's just a lot of things that come up front that need to get done. What I like best, I'm what's called a securities lawyer. So all I've really done, my focus has been helping people sell securities. In Glen's case, he sold S Corporation stock to the founders at Y Combinator. There's all kinds of rules about what it takes to sell stock, federal rules, state rules. My experience is talking to early stage people. They don't really care about that at all. So I don't spend too much time on it. That's why you get somebody who knows what they're doing, because you can make mistakes. I mean, the biggest mistake people make that I've seen is that they're trying to sell stock and they'll go on the internet and start advertising they're looking for investors. Or they'll go on TV and they'll be interviewed because they're hot, like Glen is, and then they say, "Well, tell us what." Well, I'm looking for investors. Or they go on the radio, the newspaper, whatever. There's actually new rules out now that'll enable you to do things like that, but they're kind of tricky. So that's the law side. The more interesting side is how do founders actually connect with investors. And so in my practice, I've done companies like Dollar Tree, and we went public and we connected to Fidelity and CalPERS, big monstrous companies, and raised hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's not really relevant to what you guys are thinking about, but that's sort of the big picture. Yeah.
CalPERS invest in early stage startups?
Never.
Okay.
Won't touch them.
I was gonna say my uncle does commercial real estate, so I think CalPERS invest in that.
They will.
more
I mean, I
stable
shouldn't. I
type
shouldn't
thing,
say that.
right?
It's an allocation game. I mean, it's a question of whether they think that there's a reason to invest in a particular type. I do a lot of work for UVA's investing group. They would never invest in an early stage company. They will indirectly because they'll have an allocation of venture capital.
Mhm.
So they might allocate 5%, 10% of their portfolio to venture, or maybe buyout, private equity. They'll have a piece, but the big piece is the market plus bonds and stuff. But you rarely see the big guys do the early stuff unless they. You'll see people that work at the big guys who do early investments. Guys who meet Glen and say, "This guy rocks. I know my company. I don't want to go through all the hassle, but I'll put in $50,000, $100,000." The numbers I heard Glen say are pretty accurate.
Okay.
So, big companies that go public, that's real sexy, but that isn't everyday stuff. For you guys, I imagine you're trying to figure out how you're going to get your first $10,000, or your first 50, or your first 200, or whatever. And so I've had a lot of experience with that, and it's very hard. What Glenn was able to do is very unique, and I think you guys should understand that. Getting through a Y Combinator process the way you did, something about what Glenn's saying, and I think you can tell talking to him, something connected. I meet all kinds of companies and try to figure out if I can help them. I used to say I could help everybody because I thought I was like, God, and I learned that I can't help everybody because like some companies suck and some people suck and they just don't work. Okay, so I've gotten better at figuring out which ones have a shot, which ones don't. I'm not perfect though. But what Glenn said is right. I mean, these guys, these women who have enough money to allocate some of that money to an early stage opportunity are looking for something special. Okay, and think about how much money it takes. Who are these people in this market, which I know very well? I know of. We added this up the other day. I know of 43 people in this market that have invested at least $25,000 in an early stage company. Okay, that's actually a lot of people. A lot of those people have only done like 25, 50,000. There are very few that can write a real check. But think about what it takes to write a real check. Say you've done fabulously well and you're worth $1 million. Okay, and you go to your money manager and they say, okay, John, I'm going to allocate your $1 million for you. I'm going to put 40% in stocks and I'm going to put 40% in bonds and 10% in this, and I'll give you 5% for early stage play around money. So that they're going to give me like $50,000, and I'm not going to invest $50,000 in one company. Probably, I'm probably going to invest $50,000 in 5 companies. Okay, so the $1 million guys, they can't help you much. A $10 million guy, well, he might have $500,000 to play around with. Maybe 5 investments of 100, something like that. 10 million is pretty successful, right? $100 million guy, maybe he's got $5 million to mess around with. So the key is finding the $100 million guys, because they're the guys that are usually pretty experienced in doing this stuff. They usually love to do it. And as Glenn said, they're not looking to turn 100,000 into 125,000. They're looking to turn 100,000 into $10 million. Okay. Now that's daunting for you guys. Just how the heck can I come up with something that's that big of a change in the world? It's hard, and that's why it doesn't happen much. And Glenn's numbers are 100% right. For every Airbnb, there's how many that don't make?
Oh yeah, like hundreds.
Hundreds.
Yeah, thousands. Probably.
Thousands. I mean, just lots. Okay. And so I'm not going to pretend to have a whole lot of experience in the Silicon Valley because I don't. But I have 2 clients that are actually situated there. They moved there, but they did move a little, sort of a combination of what you do. Each of them have done the same thing. The CEO in one case, the CFO in another, moved there. And the CEO just broke up with his wife. He had kids. The kid's a mess. But he kind of wanted to be there anyway. He lived in Richmond. So he's there, but his whole office is in Richmond. Okay? So they're able to get the both. And he loves walking around, meeting people. He's meeting people all the time, So he's kind of, I'm kind of like listening to what's going on. So everything Glenn's saying, it sounds so familiar. But for you guys, you might not get the Y Combinator thing, okay? There's different paths. The most important thing to me is being able to tell your story of who's going to buy your product. Who are your customers, okay? The investors, they kind of trust coders that the code's going to work. They kind of trust. We got a company over in the peninsula called BNNT, called Boron Nitride Nanotubes. These 3 guys, brilliant dudes, came out of Jefferson Lab and NASA. They know how to make boron nitride nanotubes. I don't know what the hell a boron nanotube is. It's a real strong fiber. Okay. We took them around. They eventually raised 2.5 on 2.5 pre, 2.5 million pre-money. So they basically gave up 50% of the company. Going back to your question, we did have milestones though. They had to hit a certain thing for the second 1.5 million to come in. So they got the local guy, 2 guys, both of them $100 million guys. Okay, and they agreed to put in 750 each, 1.5 million on a 2.5 pre, and they agreed to put in another million if certain things happened, which they have, but we reserved the right not to take it because we knew if we hit these things, that valuation might not be so good. Okay, we just happened to find the right people for them. Okay, and if you're not going to have a Y Combinator type route, the key is finding the right people that can write a check. And when you get in front of them, 10 seconds, you did your thing. Half a minute. I mean, didn't you want to go to the site? I'm kind of bummed out today. I want to go check it out. I've never heard anything. But a psychologist, I mean, we all have days like that, right? I mean, can we see use for that? Yeah, right? I mean, if you're honest with yourself, I'll check it out.
Yeah, great. Please do.
You know, now I'd be kind of worried about who might be giving the advice. Like if my oldest son gave the advice, I would do the exact opposite of whatever it says. I'd say, Jay, is that what you think I ought to do? Okay, I'm gonna go the other way.
Yahoo answers.
Pardon me?
Yahoo answers.
Yeah. But I mean, cool. So you know, I mean, I can't add a whole lot to what Glenn said. I mean, the people that make it, who make it, passionate people who can sell. Okay, if they can code, it's awesome. They don't have to. Coding is good because maybe you see a problem a little. I'm not a coder. My son is, but you see problems a little bit differently because you kind of know what's going on. But in the end, it's a question of whether customers are going to want your product. So that's where I tell my guys to spend their time. What's your product?
I have a solar-powered protective phone case.
Solar-powered
Protective phone case.
Okay, and I want it because I don't have to charge it up my phone. Does it charge my phone?
Pretty much, it's going to rejuvenate the juice of your battery at the end of the day when you're sitting at 15% at 5 o'clock and you still want to use your phone and you don't want to be tethered to a wall. At the flip of a switch from our case, you can recharge your phone.
Will these lights power it?
No.
So it has to be outside. What's your product?
Tunnel traffic. It's traffic at a glance. Women hate maps. That's kind of how I came up with it. I asked my wife to validate a 511 sign, and I watched her struggle with all the stuff that was out there and being there. So it's a really quick view of all the tunnels. It shows you exactly what's going on in all of them at any given time.
How about you?
I'm doing IT consulting, so I'm
Okay.
doing capability identification and then fulfillment on the commercial market, not reselling anybody's products.
That's good. There's a lot of good IT consulting companies that were here. Metro Information Services, a guy named John Fain, Martin Joseph, 360 IT. It's a good business. That's a good.
What I'm doing differently is that I'm not selling products, and a lot of those tech companies are.
Okay, so you're selling the consulting.
I'm selling the consulting and the recommendation for whoever's going to provide the best deal.
Okay. I mean, that's kind of, I don't want to ask, I'll put you on the spot, but that's the kind of thing that you need to be very comfortable with. And when you answer the question, is who gets funded? So there's a guy over in Newport News named Gary Warren, who I know that Zach talked to just the other day. This is a guy, it'll be you in your third venture, because in his first venture, he made money for people. He was a NASA guy, and this thing called the internet showed up, and all schools wanted to have internet, but they didn't want pornography and other stuff. So he came up with this algorithm to block bad stuff. And his algorithm was awesome because he blocked only the stuff that was meant to be blocked and left the rest of it to be passed on to the kids. And the teachers loved that because all the other blocks blocked an entire report. A big example being the STAR report, which is a report that came out about President Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. It was a long report, but there was about 2 or 3 pages that there was some pretty inappropriate stuff for a 4th grader to see. All the other blocks blocked the entire report. Gary's just blocked those pages. And the teachers, who are basically First Amendment leftish leaning, thought that was awesome. And a company called Symantec bought him. And it sucked for me because he was a brand new client. And I wanted him to do 8 rounds of capital. And I wanted him to buy 7 businesses. And then someday go public. And then, sell the company, because like the best clients for lawyers, we're whores, right? So the best clients are ones that have a long life, that need a lot of stuff. But the guys from Symantec showed up, and we had venture guys coming in. And Senator Warner came in. He really wanted to invest in his company. And but Symantec came in and they offered a number. And I was like, well, that sucks, because I know they're going to sell at that price. And they did. Okay. So he made a bunch of money for a lot of people, a lot of angel type people who had never really invested in anything. And now he's got another business, a medical device company, and he's raised 12.8, 3 rounds, because people trust Gary, because Gary's made money for somebody
It's
else.
also solving a real problem. And that's the case too.
Solving a huge
So
problem.
the idea is that when you put, when you're going to give blood or blood, you miss the vein 75% of the time. And so basically, they have something that makes sure that you don't miss the vein.
It's a sensor. And sometimes they'll even hit the vein, but then the vein pops. Or sometimes they'll hit the vein and the needle falls out of the thing. And the way that my wife is a nurse, and the way they test it is the nurses come by, and so if it's not going in my arm, I kind of know it because it kind of hurts. But if I'm a 2-year-old kid, I cry about everything anyway, right? So they don't know. So this thing, I'm instant using a sensor. So the point is, he has passion and he's made money for people. So there's a bunch of different stories that can be told about what it takes. Everybody's got to find their own story, though. One thing I'll tell you, and this is important, and often the hardest thing to do is to realize that maybe this particular idea isn't very good. And the sooner you can figure that out without like killing yourself and going on another idea, can be the smartest thing you ever do. So think about, is an early stage investor, $900 million plus person, going to believe that it can be really big? It doesn't have to go from 0 revenue to $14 trillion. Google didn't go to that much revenue at first, but it was an incredible idea, right? But it does have to have a pretty fast trajectory that makes sense for people to, because I can put my money in the stock market and make 12%, 10%, 9%, 8%, whatever. I can go to a REIT and get 10% cash on cash. I can go to the bond market and make 7%. I go to a venture fund, maybe they'll make me 30 if they're good. Maybe they'll make me 0 if they suck. But it's not easy to find 1,000%, 10 times your money, 20 times your money. You know where you go? Maybe you get lucky. So you got to figure out what you can do to tell a story that resonates with these people that want to make a lot of money. What else?
I guess that's a great point. You have to be the unicorn that they want to bet on.
We had a presentation. There's a local thing. I'll give you a local pitch just so you know this. There's a like I told you, there's 43 people I've counted that have written checks of more than $25,000. So in this market, there's no venture fund. Invest used to be here. Have you ever heard of Invest? Invest is here. It's done. It's done 3 funds. I've done their work. David and John have decided they don't want to do another fund. They never really invested in early stage growth opportunities here in Hampton Roads anyway. But that was our venture fund. There's a venture fund in Richmond called Harbor. There's a number of funds in Northern Virginia. Raleigh, Durham, we have an office down there. I'm a lawyer. We have 300 people. There's offices, Raleigh, Durham, Tyson's, everywhere in between. And River Cities is down there, a company called InterSouth. The per town venture funds in relation to Silicon Valley is sort of embarrassing on the East Coast. There just aren't a whole lot. And the East Coast firms are much more conservative just by their nature. Now, that doesn't mean that it's easier to get money in the West Coast. I don't know that it's easier. I mean, I think you got to have a really good company to get money. Good companies get funded. Okay, I believe that. Bad companies sometimes get funded. terrible companies rarely get funded. But in the end, the only ones they're looking for are the really good ones, and they usually find some people. So if you got a good story, it'll work.
I tend to find that kind of the difference in what you're saying is that in Glen's case, with people on the West Coast, they just want to see your vector, your overall vector. That's it, from afar. And on the East Coast, they want to see each course correction that you make, and they want to analyze each one of those course corrections. And that just tends to be my.
Here's what I'll say.
analysis
Here's
on
what I'll say to that. I think that's a very accurate but generic statement, because there are. Let's compare who we're talking to. Early stage guys, women who have made money, all over the place. Most of them want to see a trajectory like this, and they want to see, do you have a path to customers and revenue? Now the West Coast, same way. The venture funds, though, are much later. There are funds in Northern Virginia, there are funds in Boston that will do very early based on vision. But I think if there's a generic statement I would make is that there are so many opportunities, so many smart people on the East Coast, that these venture funds like Harvard, I do a lot of work for this group in Richmond, they get tremendous opportunities. And like in 1998, 1999, idea companies could raise venture funding because there was a public market out there that would let them go public in 2 or 3 years, so these funds had an exit. Now they get presented so many opportunities because there's so many companies on the East Coast that they might see an early stage vector. But they got a guy over here who's done $4 million in revenue, is actually making money, and they could see this company going to $100 million in revenue relatively quickly. The East Coast tends to go that way because it's safer.
Right.
So that's a very true.
They're not really looking for unicorns. They're looking for
They're looking for unicorns, but they're not looking like the West Coast is.
Right.
It's just different. My guy went to the West Coast because he thinks he's a unicorn.
Right.
Is he? I don't know.
So
He's raised $9 million though.
you were involved with the Because, right?
Yes.
So with Because, I don't know if we can mention some of the stuff in there.
We're in the process of looking for investors right now.
I mean, I was in the investor meeting.
I do.
Okay. No, and I know all that, but some of the things that kind of came through it, I don't. Can we mention any specific things? Okay.
Sure. Anything you want.
Okay. So some of the things, there were weird stipulations, like placed on the CEO, or just I don't want to say what they were, but there's just like some weird, in my opinion, like, hey, if you do this, looking at this really little thing is almost insignificant. Kind of me being on the inside, I looked at some of the things and I was like,
You mean the things they were asking of the CEO as part of his employment situation?
yeah, but how basically they were little things, and if you do this, you'll get this, or if you do this, you'll get that type of stuff. And so I look at some of that stuff, and I think that's like, to me, that's the difference between East Coast and West Coast type mindset. So
Well,
I wonder,
Let me give you just a quick heuristic on that.
Yeah.
This is so at YC, Mark Zuckerberg came out and he shared like a bunch of things, but this is something he said public so that I can share it. There's 2 types of raising money: when you have the leverage and when somebody else has the leverage.
right.
So that's the bottom line.
Well, and,
You
and-
have the
and-
leverage?
and in this case, let me connect you two, because he's exactly right.
Okay.
What you're talking about is not what the investors are demanding of the CEO. It's what this board is demanding of the CEO as part of his compensation package.
Yeah.
Which is different than how the company is going to raise money.
Right.
And, all we can do is give advice. I mean, I think milestones for a pre-revenue startup are very difficult. I mean, because you don't know what the hell's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I got your point.
Okay.
But I wouldn't see the investors putting those types of stipulations on them.
Okay.
My experience, here's the investors, okay? Clerky. It's binary. Yes, no. Typically, it's yes, no.
Okay.
It's not yes, if,
Okay.
no, if. It's no because you say you're worth $20 million and you're not. Or yes because you're saying you're worth $2 million, and you know what? I get that. And you need 500,000. Here's the big thing: you got to know when you need your money too. So, like people walk in and say, "I need $25 million to make this business work." Oh, really? Okay, when? Do you need $25 million day one? Well, yeah. Well, do you really? Well, and you start working around. Well, it turns out they need 400,000 to get to a big point, a big changing point. Then maybe they need another 500 to get to another point. Then maybe it's 3 million here. And then maybe someday there's this big growth thing where they're going to hire 1,000 salespeople. And that's when they need real money, like 20, 30, Series B, Series C. The key is knowing when do you need it, because you always want to raise the smallest amount possible that makes a difference. Because you don't want to give up a lot. And if you want more money than people are willing to put in at your stage, you're just going to spin your wheels. Like $1.2 million. Is that the number you were looking for? What number are you looking for?
I was hoping for like 1.5, but
Yeah.
not for any like real thought out reason. It just was like it would be plenty. And the metaphor YC uses is you're sipping, you're sucking on the straw and there's nothing left in there. Like it's tapped. Like you're good. You're gonna get what you're gonna get, and then you're just okay. And for us, I mean, 1.2 has been loads of money because again, we know how to make it go far.
That's critical. They don't want to see you burning the money.
Yeah.
Unless it's for something valuable.
The worst thing is to throw money at something that's not ready to make good use of it.
So this 757 Angels thing is to jump at. So we've got people that have committed to getting together and looking at ideas. Okay? So the idea is that we will be the best angel group in the world. Okay? And the reason we can have that goal is because I've worked with a bunch of angel groups and they suck. Okay, I can tell you why they suck. This Y Combinator thing, the concept of having I kind of might steal that. I won't get into what we're doing different, but we are doing a lot of things different. The biggest thing we're doing is we're trying to really encourage people to come. A lot of these angel groups, they encourage you to come, but then the people that put it together want a percentage of the profits of the investments made by the people who are in the group. So nobody comes because I don't want to give up. I don't want to give. Zach's great, but I'm not going to give him 20% of my profits. So we're not doing that. We're just trying to get people in the room to take a look, and not just in the room, but also online. So you can look at Angel List, and you can see the companies that are local. So you guys could all apply your company.
You should.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly you're not going to lose anything from just applying and going through the process of learning. You'll learn a lot in the process. That's another part of just getting into it. But guys, I need to run, but shoot me an email if you have any questions. I'm happy to help. Really nice meeting you. Thanks. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Glenn.
Take care.
Appreciate it.
So what do you say sign up with Angel List for 757?
So I would look for 757 Angels. You're going to see it launching officially. It was in the Daily Press on Sunday. It's officially going to be launched in January.
Okay.
And we're looking for deal flow. We're looking for good deals. And
Say bye.